Fucking UVTV, motherfucker. I'm gonna kick spiritual ass and do this for my people. On God. Neon nigga Featherman, yeah. And today I'm gonna be talking about what is religious nationalism? It is just a tool utilized to make people lost into idol worship for the sake of power. Now, like I've been saying, for the most part, right? Religion is just a real legion. So it's a real legion of people of making people lost into idol worship, aka self-projection type of energy, because all that is, especially when it comes to the monotheism, polytheism, and the Abrahamic God and stuff like that, a lot of that is just self-projection type of energy. Because if y'all God so cold, God would just be all of existence, all possibilities, all of creation and stuff like that, right? If the thing y'all look at as a deity, which isn't really God, it's a deity, because only a demon would like being called God, and only a demon, demonic figure, the thing you trying to turn to a deity that came from some type of entity that y'all be lost into based upon idol worship and stuff like that, you wouldn't self-project that so much, right? Because like how people be saying, everyone has their own personal relationship when it comes to God, aka all possibilities, to make it possible for you and stuff like that. So you're going to put up and do certain things to finish the mission, the spiritual mission, finish the vision, finish that imagination based upon what you're trying to create for yourself. Now, other people start doing that self-projection energy and start making themselves victims or have that victim type mentality and stuff like that based upon what they lack by using that thing, that deity as a mental crutch, because you feel the need to go to war for it based upon the space that you in, right? Because spirituality is just believing in something that's greater than yourself and stuff like that. And then that's your spirit. Your spirit is your space or your creativity or your productivity. And then it get condensed into a shape and form, which turns into your light body, aka your mind, aka your thoughts, ideas, feelings, and emotions. And then off of that emotion and feeling, that vibration, it get condensed again into your physical body, into the blood and the adrenaline and the veins and the organs and the brains and the eyeballs and all that type shit, to where you can be into physical existence. But everything is based upon, I'm gonna use y'all terminology, like the karmic cycle and stuff like that. So anything you put out based upon how you want to live your life, you're going to end up getting that shit back. So if you have intentions in your mind of having more positive intent or higher purpose, higher vibrational intent, or trying to emit something good, or at least in your perspective, you doing it based upon the kindness or the goodness of your heart and stuff like that, that's what you're going to get out of it, and vice versa. But it's a thing to where you're going to go through those different highs and lows and stuff like that. So you could be a good soul but be around a whole bunch of bad spirits. So look at it as like a bad surrounding or environment or some shit like that, right? So based upon that surrounding environment, you might be around bad spirits, aka you might have to do some strange thing for a piece of change, or you have to do some bad things based upon the construct of the government or the society, or where you just living it at the moment, just based upon motherfuckers have to get it how they live, or them having to be in survival mode, some shit like that. But for the most part, from an overall perspective, you know what I'm saying, you just getting it how you live for the most part. So you might have to do some bad things, like you have to get into drug dealing, or you had to get initiated into a gang based upon survival mode, some shit like that. Or you from the streets and you had to do a couple street things where a suburban or a plutocracy or some you know what I'm saying, like a millionaire or some shit like that, they'll just look at like the motherfucker like, oh, it's just some thug, or just some ghetto motherfucker, or just some hoodlum, or just some white trash, because this and the third, oh, this motherfucker a bum. But they ain't a bum in spirit. They just had to do what they had to do to survive based upon their physical circumstances, but it don't mean they feel like that inside and shit like that. They just trying to get it how they live based upon their surroundings and environment in the best way they know how. Now, the best percentage scale is, oh, we trying to get out the slums, or we trying to get out the streets and shit like that, so we don't have to do certain things no more. But it's based upon the intentions they have on their mind. Now, some motherfuckers, like, I don't know, like a King Von ass motherfucker, probably have bad intentions and they're around bad spirits as well, and then they just gonna hold that villain role of them being a serial killer, and then they gonna scorch program the whole entire block. They gonna run down that whole entire block. Everybody and their families and their grandmas and their grandpas gonna get it and shit like that. They all gonna switch their ass down, and it's gonna be nothing but bloodshed and stuff like that from them standing on the concrete blocking street, even though y'all didn't make that shit either. But you get what I'm trying to say. So a lot of different people are practitioners of that, but they do it from a spiritual lens, right? And the spirituality is just the space you in. your individuality, you being one of a kind in some shape or form. Otherwise, you want to be sentient right now, and you want to be in existence. So you expand out of a mind, and then you condense into a new one and stuff like that. So that's a constant thing that we're doing in a line of reasoning, to where we're trying to expand the space that we in from a spiritual perspective, so we can expand our mind, so we can expand out of this physical shape and form of us being a human right now. And we're ancient beings just in general, because we've been doing that reasoning longer than animals and stuff like that. So we can have characteristics like mammals, like elephants, like polar bears, like a fish, like a shark, like a goddamn cheetah, like a lion, but we ain't no lion, we ain't no alligator, we ain't no crocodile, but we can have some characteristics like that, but we aren't that, because we have a more broader way of how to conduct our attention span, and learn how to expand and contract and have that tension and stuff like that, to where we go through these different experiences, aka spiritual experiments, to where we can expand out of that mind state, to where we don't think like that. And you could compare and contrast of how we can make dogs and cats into pets, but they can't do that to us, regardless of how intelligent we probably will put on certain animals and stuff like that, right? Our intelligence just overall is more expanded than theirs. So that's saying something. That's saying, oh, okay, we done went through a whole bunch of different bodies, thought forms, a whole bunch of different experiences and stuff like that, experiments when it comes to our spirit in the space that we're in, and created different shapes and forms, to where we can't even contain that into like a bear or a mountain lion or some shit like that. We have to contain that into a human, because a human is a new shape and form or being that has a more broader intelligence compared to that animal, compared to that cell, compared to that bug. Yeah, like, you get what I'm saying? Like, we can play out these different characteristics and stuff like that. It's just y'all be getting lost into one shape or form of how that look like and shit like that. Or get into alien type of thinking, to where, oh yeah, we got some alien type beings from outer space and shit like that that's gonna come down. They got the highest intelligence, and what if aliens came down right now and stuff like that, and how they would respond to you know what I'm saying, how we conduct things on Earth and shit like that. When it's like, nigga, you are that thing. You're a walking sun, a walking moon. You know what I'm saying? You create shapes and forms, you create thoughts, you create feelings, you create the imagination, you create you know what I'm saying, you create visions, you create that vibration, you create that vibe, you create that sentience, just your personal subjective point of view, and you go on that spiritual mission to go to that objective point of view, which is just mankind in general. So from you acting up that characteristic of being one of a kind, that's you expanding your personal space, to where you can help other motherfuckers and see that light into others, to make it so they can create something for themselves and make a different culture and stuff like that, instead of getting controlled and getting lost into other man-made creations and stuff like that. Because you a man or woman yourself and stuff like that. You got a divine masculine, divine feminine. You know what I'm saying? So you're able to cultivate that thought, idea, feeling, emotion, because a man is just a thought and idea of something, and that farthest light, that farthest direction. And then the mother is just the motherland, the mother nature, the internal realm, the feeling and emotion of how we're gonna conduct based upon that farthest direction and shit like that, of being walking emanations of what a walking star would look like. A walking star would just be a celestial body at a luminous point and stuff like that. So you utilizing your light body, your lighter shape and form, and being able to create something for yourself again, instead of getting lost into what already got created, that's already on Earth right now. So you have your own way of life, your own trend, you know what I'm saying, your own experiences and stuff like that, and you was able to cultivate something, turning nothing into something, because all that is you emanating that, and that starting off as a seed, and then you growing that seed into a big ass tree, into a big ass bush, into a big ass garden of Eden, based upon that allegory and stuff like that. And that's really what they talking about when it comes to Adam and Eve in the Bible and stuff like that. Y'all just get lost into the lower desires and the serpents and the snakes and the grass and all that type shit. You know what I'm saying? When you should be aiming higher for a flying serpent dragon or some shit like that, being more mythical and stuff like that, understanding the mystery behind the history, not trying to make history of some shit that some billboard or some enterprise or some Walt Disney representation based upon statistics of what already got made. No, you just make the new statistic and stuff like that. So I'm saying that to say, to, like, you know, broaden y'all awareness, or lighten y'all spirit up, or lighten y'all minds up for what I'm about to say when it comes to the whole religious nationalism type of stuff, for the most part, because a lot of that just be based upon the Abrahamic God and monotheism and polytheism and shit like that, and them self-projecting their practices and spiritual beliefs and stuff like that, when their whole thing is just cosplaying in itself. And I can just debunk that shit in dead ass 2 minutes. Because all of it is just icon and idol worship and shit like that. So what are you idol worshiping? You're idol worshiping that thought and idea that some other being in existence, like something that was already an entity, and y'all turning it into a deity. That's why I keep on saying, oh, you worship that deity, or you worshiping a demon, because only a deity or demon like being called God in that way and stuff like that, because God is just no shape and form and all possibilities, all of existence. And then you try to make it possible for yourself, turning nothing into something. You turn that passion, motivation, that imagination, that thought, idea that came from your mind and what you want to create it, and what what you want to create and stuff like that. And you get around motherfuckers who also in the same sentiment or have that same spiritual mission or that same dream, and y'all try to cultivate something together, and it turns into a culture, and it turns into something that looked like some magic, or y'all manifesting something that looked like it was impossible. You made it possible for you, from you putting yourself first and you actually playing that out and being a natural practitioner of what that shit is. And that's you working for God, all possibilities, and you having a strong spirit. So you ain't getting lost into the monetary gain or the physical aspects, and you ain't getting lost into the mind state of how to look at it and how to go about it. You just going at it from a more genuine, authentic, individualistic point of view, and you already around your people who already in that same sentiment. So y'all take y'all losses together and y'all take y'all wins together and shit like that, and you making something that's more authentic to how y'all feel, instead of trying to go based upon what the algorithm says, or go based upon the statistics, the monetary gain, or the goddamn, you know what I'm saying, trying to appeal to strangers and shit like that, when you shouldn't be in that self-projection energy. Because from you being in that self-projection energy just in general, that lets you know, you feel like you lack something and you trying to fulfill that space, because spirits like to be fulfilled just in general based upon insecurities and stuff like that, right? So based upon that insecure mind state, right, from you having an insecurity, that's an inner security. So based upon that inner security, you're gonna make a security system to stop motherfuckers from reading through your programs and illusions that you trying to throw onto other people, so they don't see that soft spot, so they don't see how you actually feel inside about that thing that you feel insecure about. That's why you're trying to block it, because spirits like to be fulfilled. So you're gonna fulfill that space by blocking that inner security and stuff like that. So you go so hard so people don't see that inner darkness or that soft spot and shit like that, so motherfuckers don't play with that insecurity. And if it's something that's based upon the physical flesh or the body, or the external things we make from the flesh, like some technology or the external world, and like, you know what I'm saying, like the physical world and worldly type things and stuff like that, so motherfuckers don't see that thing that you insecure about, man, motherfuckers be willing to crash out about that shit. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like they end up being into a vulnerable space, and they start feeling shameful or like guilty or some shit like that, because they hiding their genuality of how they truly is, and they can't just come authentically as themselves. So they start self-projecting some character or cosplaying or something they really ain't, because they don't know how to deal with something when it comes to their internal natures. That's why they look for that external validation, when you should be validating and have a better love, value, and appreciation when it comes to yourself first, instead of looking for appeal or looking for validation when it comes to people outside of you who ain't your people, who ain't your culture, and you just talking to strangers. It's just the epitome of like validation issues and shit like that. Just the tiny seeds of it until it become a big ass thing. And those big ass scenarios based upon that little scenario and shit like that, and you let it blow up because you went so long procrastinating and not dealing with that internal nature and making different excuses and things of that nature, for the most part, it just turns into a motherfucker crashing out. It just turns into emotional, hormonal irregulation, depression, motherfuckers being suicidal, like a motherfucker willing to kill a motherfucker because they ain't trying to show how that really is inside and shit like that. Like, yeah. And that be the main thing when it comes to religious motherfuckers, or when y'all try to make a religion out of something, which is just idol worship, just in general. Y'all look at that God, that deity, like it's all possibilities. When we can see in everyday life, people create things for themselves without having to do that. And everyone has their own personal relationship when it comes to God. So when you start self-projecting, oh yeah, you have to get into a colony. Oh yeah, you have to go to church. Oh, you have to go and do this thing on Sunday and stuff like that. Based upon, oh, you can't do it on Saturday because that's a Sabbath day and shit like that. Man, y'all just be getting lost into man-made thinking. That some man made up to make you feel guilty, to make it so, oh, you don't feel like it's possible to create something on that day and stuff like that. Like what the fuck? You know what I'm saying? Like, And then days just going based upon the different atmosphere, seasonal transitions in different pockets of the sun and shit like that. So it's just like it's like what the fuck, like, and then on top of that, y'all get lost into England man talking, aka English and shit like that. So it's like bruh, like they just saying shit to make y'all start feeling insecure about yourselves and have validation issues, and then they have a thing they have in society based upon Walt Disney or based upon these different programs they have out here, so you can go to them for that, aka looking at like different religions and Christianity and Muslim or Buddhism or some shit like that, right? To make it so, oh, you get lost into that spirituality, that practice, instead of making your own space, your own culture, your own practice, your own creative process of how you look at it. You're only gonna get lost into how they look at it, and then you feel like you're going against God, and you going to hell if you don't do that. So that turns into, based upon religious nationalism and stuff like that. They try to create a colony, create a nation built off that practice, built off that program, built off that doctrine and shit like that. And they get you indoctrinated into that. So they be telling you don't listen to the word while also having a word or a doctrine for that thing. They have a practice, a book, holy book, sacred book, and it's only sacred to them because they the one who made it. But you ain't part of that story. You ain't part of that history. You ain't part of that lineage. It's not gonna work for you. And then the only way it's gonna work for you, you basically have to esoterically suck they fucking dick to make it work for you in some way, shape, and form, because you're under their program instead of you making your own way of going about it in your own program. So it's something they're utilizing as a tool. They're utilizing that religion as a tool. They're utilizing that entertainment factor, that celebrity, as a tool, a voodoo doll. They have to utilize that politician as a tool to make you vote for them. So it look like they politicking, so it look like they know how to run the government. And then the government is just motherfuckers who like being in the government mentality based upon colonization and capitalism. Basically, that's what it is today when it comes to colonization and shit like that. It's just capitalism. They capitalizing off of something. It's a monetary gain. They trying to do it for the dollar bill. And God we trust. One of a many. He favored us in this new world order and shit like that. He gave us this country and shit like that. But you had to do a whole bunch of colonization to do it, and make a whole bunch of different spiritual practices that y'all trying to call religion, and make different cults of religion out of it to make it so it look believable and stuff like that. Because everyone be looking for that. You know what I'm saying? Like, motherfuckers be looking for that spiritual breath and that spiritual safe haven or that safeguard and that safety security and shit like that. So they get lost into that. But that's all y'all know, because that's what y'all, you know what I'm saying? They're just making y'all mental slave and put y'all in a colony in some way, shape, or form and shit like that. And y'all just get invaded. Y'all just get raided. Y'all just get colonized, but in a mondo. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just different practices that they be doing on y'all and shit like that. Instead of you trying to make your own ritual and spell, and then take the spookism out of it. Okay, you have some type of ritual, routine, practice, or schedule routine that you do every day when it comes to your creative process, because it makes you feel in control. It makes it feel like you're doing something productive. It's making you feel like, oh, you're doing something creative. Okay, that's what they're doing on y'all. Y'all get lost into their schedule, practice, routine, and you have to do it in their specific way. Otherwise, you don't got no God in your life and shit like that, or you ain't gonna be productive, or you ain't gonna make it to heaven. You know what I'm saying? You ain't gonna make it to that sweet that sweet spot where all the Jesuits and shit like that, and Jesus Christ and all that type shit. You're gonna go straight to hell, and you're gonna get lost into the what they be saying? Yeah, you get lost into the secular material world in some shape or form. Like, that's all that shit is. All the way down to the education and shit like that. You can't educate yourself in some shape or form and be street smart. You gotta be you gotta get lost into their institutions and their universities, and you gotta get book smart into what they wrote down and what they want you to know, instead of you learning shit, just being in life and shit like that. But motherfuckers don't be connected with life. Y'all get lost into some book some colonists made up or some shit like that, or get lost into that religion and or some shit like that, or you get lost into that intellectual property and that authorship based upon what they did in the physical, and you just think, oh, that's the only way you can make it and stuff like that. And then they done sold up the game so bad when it comes to different businesses and shit like that. Y'all just look at it like, oh, this is just life in general. So if I don't become this celebrity, or if I don't make $1 million, or if I don't be successful when it comes to this, that, and the third, and if I don't run this fucking corporation in this type of way based upon the contract, and if I don't get no handler, no lawyer, no Jew, because of this, that, and the third on my side, then my whole shit gonna be fucked up. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna be suffering. I'm gonna be poor as hell. They're just making y'all feel broke spiritually and poor in spirit by getting lost into their world, because it's based upon what they created. It's their practice. It's their spirit. So it just make you feel like you got no inspiration. You got no inspire. And then the only thing that's inspiring is based upon idol worship. And the examples they already have out there, but you just getting lost into someone else's creations instead of creating your own way of how to look at it for the most part. And in a nutshell, that's really what religious nationalism is. And they got different fucking, nigga, they got Vatican City, nigga, they got the official government state in like Costa Rica or some shit like that, being ran based upon some Christian state, some colonizer state that they don't rule over, and they include their religious practices and they make that part of government in some way, shape, or form. When really, I mean, they really be doing that in America just in general and stuff like that, based upon colonization and capitalism and stuff like that. But like, and then them using Jesus, Jesuit Christ and shit like that as a walking example of what that is, right? Because motherfuckers want to be a follower of Christ when they're just being a white face, you know what I'm saying, like colored glass ceiling representation of what the fuck that look like. That's why they be having those things in Africa when you go into different churches or go into different museums and stuff like that, right? They're showing them doing that in the physical because they just want to be the white face representation of what the fuck that look like based upon religion. And they do that when it comes to education, they do that when it comes to politics, they do that when it comes to entertainment. You know what I'm saying? Like they just want to be the white face representation of what that is, so you can create your own way of how to look at it, and you get lost into their version of what that looked like. Because the same way how y'all look at Jesus, and Jesus is the Father's son, right, with the son all behind him and stuff like that, is just Jesus being the white face role representation of it, that motherfucker being the savior or the redeemer in some shape or form of the sun cycles and shit like that. And based upon the different sun cycles and sun transitions and shit like that, and the 12 disciples of the 12 houses and the 12 zodiac signs and stuff like that, he's being a walking sun and moon. He's trying to be a walking celestial body, a walking star in the flesh, because ain't the sun a star? So it's like, that's why the sun behind him and shit like that. They're trying to be, oh, you can only be a follower of Christ and be enlightened into that illumination of that shape and form of what that looked like. That's why they made it into a religion, because they're taking different spiritual practices they learn from different interactions from different cultures, from Africans and Arabs and Moors and Native Americans and Asians and shit like that, and they're making their own practice spiritual system, and they made their version of what that is, and that's it. That's all. So it just turns into a goddamn monetary gain and business aspect, and they can make motherfuckers like Joel Osteen or TD Jakes or some shit like that to be a preacher teacher under their program from what they created. And that's all that is. So they utilize that as a tool for nationalism. And then nationalism is what they made as a nation, because they want to be fathers of a nation. And fathers of a nation is just some Christopher Columbus, founding father George Washington concept. And now I don't even gotta break that shit down, just capitalism. And then before that, in the Old Testament and shit like that, the old world before it became the new world, and the New Testament and shit like that, just colonization and bringing motherfuckers on boats. So it's getting y'all lost into idol worship instead of you looking at yourself as an idol. You ain't looking at yourself as something to worship. I'm not saying, oh yeah, you gotta be God or some shit like that. No, you just utilize your God and goddess body, your masculine and feminine, your divine masculine, divine feminine, your divine grapevine, grapefruit, you know what I'm saying? Make some own fruit for yourself. Plant that seed based upon how you look at it and create your own way of how to look at it. And then you get around other motherfuckers who willing to help build on that spiritual concept, the space that y'all in, and then y'all make your own culture within y'all people instead of self-projecting that onto others. And then you got your own little system. You got your own little industry. You got your own little entertainment factor. You know what I'm saying? You got your own music. You got your own culture and shit like that. Instead of getting lost into the self-projection, colonized version, idol worship version, demonic version, deity worship version of what that looked like and stuff like that. So you can actually be that in the flesh and shit. And then it won't turn into some goddamn shit you feel like you gotta prove when it come to religious motherfuckers and atheist motherfuckers and shit like that. Because they really the same niggas, just different spectrums and shit like that. Or you talking like some theologian getting into different debates based upon, oh, what religion is better because of this, that, and the third. Right, y'all just sound like red pill motherfuckers and shit like that who just hate females, or you just sound like some misandrous ass bitch because y'all hate niggas because y'all can't deal with y'all internal energies. Okay, you can't deal with your own thoughts, ideas, feelings, and emotions. You can't deal with your own divine masculine, divine feminine. You can't deal with externalizing and internalizing the right way, and having hormone imbalance and all that type shit. It's just validation issues and insecurities and shit like that. So from them trying to use that as some type of power and stuff like that, y'all just making y'all self spiritually go to hell in some shape or form, because you ain't putting yourself in a space to where you can create and cultivate something for yourself and be more productive in that. You trying to prove something that you ain't even creating shit like that. So you trying to get all rise through all the rankings, being some goddamn Mason or some shit like that, some 33rd degree sun cycle. You know what I'm saying? Like being some goddamn Pope Papa pedophile, you know what I'm saying? Like motherfucker in all white purity and all that type shit, and try to prove all that shit. But it's like, nigga, you wasn't there when Jesus Christ fucking turned water into wine and made a motherfucking stop being blind. Bars and shit. Like, no, bars right there, I ain't gonna cap. So yeah, it's just some aristocracy. Y'all just trying to make it work for you. Like, y'all just be utilizing that shit to make that shit work for y'all and y'all people. And then y'all start project like, hey, if you get like us, you gonna go up and shit like that. When it's like, man, no, bro. Like, y'all just, nah. It's just utilized as a tool for motherfuckers to get lost in the idol worship, and motherfuckers use that for aristocracy and elitism so they can stay in power. So you can't come up with your own program outside they shit. And the minute you start coming up with they shit, man, they're gonna start putting sides. They're gonna start doing a whole bunch of other crazy shit to make it look like you crazy or some conspiracy theorist and shit like that. Or you look like you demonic or evil. And when, like, bro, like that should be crazy as fuck. It'd be crazy as fuck. And then they be making different colonies and states of being, aka different states and countries based upon that. So that's what they be using that religion, real legion of people for, to maintain a legion. So you can't make up your own legion of people who don't think like that. Like that's it. That's all. It just be it be self-projection energy, and they be using that to rule as a nation and shit like that. Man, y'all motherfucker going to hell thinking like that. You know what I'm saying? You got no spirit and shit like that. That's why y'all be needing celebrities, and y'all be needing real genuine people and shit like that to be a representation, because otherwise motherfuckers wouldn't even give a fuck about it and shit like that. So it's like, yeah, you need a Lil Uzi Vert, you need a Playboi Carti, you need a Cardi B or some shit like that, you need a Kendrick Lamar, y'all need a Kanye West, y'all need real people who actually have some creative talent, gift, or skill set they can actually show from them making that shit from the ground up. Y'all just give them money so y'all can utilize them, because motherfuckers be loving that little monetization and that monetary gain, that money and shit like that, and they think they doing a good thing, but you still a part of their world, their industry in some way, shape, or form. So it's just, they cold when it comes to the what they call that, the industrialized mind, but they ain't good with the gold mind. They ain't good with the creativity mind. They ain't good with the spirit mind though. You really need both though. You need to know how to be material and physical and industrialize something and make a good piece of work out of that, but you also need to have a gold mind, a spiritual mind, a productive mind, and a creative mind and shit like that. And if you know how to combine both, oh yeah, you a cold motherfucker. You start seeing through everything the same way how I'm talking right now, to where motherfuckers don't be caring about no religious state, and motherfuckers just want to be in power and get lost into idol worship and shit like that. Motherfuckers start looking at you based upon what you pay attention to, and having a grand attention span and shit like that, and then motherfuckers start looking at what you got as attractive based upon your character and your imagination, and motherfuckers start looking at you like you some deity or some shit like that. But you ain't gonna utilize it like a fuck nigga, and you wanna make motherfuckers look at you like the ultimate narc king or some shit like that. Utilize it as your god and goddess body. So motherfuckers look at you like you a goddess, a goddess, motherfucking shit like that. Cause you feel that way about yourself based upon the space you in, because you made it. You created it, and no one can take away that spiritual gift. No one can take away that talent. No one can monetize that shit in to their favor and shit like that. Cause you gonna come as your people and as your disciples and shit like that. Not some, oh, we gotta prove BC before Christ, millions of years ago, trying to prove where Jesus' people at when they ain't there in the flesh and shit like that. So if y'all the holy people and y'all the holy sacred land or some shit like that, where the fuck y'all at? And where's the descendants at? They gone? They gone? Y'all supposed to be, man, y'all supposed to represent y'all ancestors. Y'all supposed to represent y'all predecessors. Y'all supposed to be the new fleshly fluid of what the fuck that look like. Where the fuck they at? You know what I'm saying? Like, where the fuck they at? Y'all should be making a whole new different culture, a whole new different book, and y'all can prove, oh yeah, we did this, we did that. Man, it wouldn't be no thing when it comes to Israel and Palestine right now and shit like that. It just, at that point, it just look, man, y'all ain't being no real men and women. At that point, it just start looking like, oh, okay, these motherfuckers really childish. Oh, okay. It just utilized as a tool for power or some shit like that. But that's it. That's all. UVTV on God. That's all that shit is on God. So at that point, it just turns into motherfuckers just need to get their own territory. Motherfuckers just need to get their own culture and shit like that, and stop getting lost into man-made things based upon self-projection energy of what the fuck they made. Make a new type of culture. Make a new type of sun dropper. I'm trying to make it like simple. For like make some new type of creativity, make some new type of style, make some new type of industry, make some new type of corporation. But it's something that you and your people made, and y'all all got that spiritual mission to maintain that because it's y'all shit. And you know what I'm saying? Ain't nobody gonna be able to play with you when it comes to that and stuff like that. And then your kids is always gonna get that nepotism and shit like that. So it's like, yeah, start getting more like that. The same way how y'all look at the Jews. I'm not even hating on motherfuckers in these positions. I'm just saying we have to get like them because that's what they do to y'all and shit like that. And so shape and form. So get like them and be in that type of character. Not saying cosplay as some Jew. I'm not saying cosplay as some Christian or some shit like that. I'm not saying cosplay as some Buddhist. No, put yourself in mentality. Oh, let's create something, a culture where it's like that, but it's something that we made in some shape and form. And if people want to be a follower of that and want to uphold what we done created, because motherfuckers think that shit imaginative or creative or cool, then it's gonna show that genuinely, not something where it's gonna be some proven validation, self-projection energy to strangers all the time. You got that back pocket energy of, oh nah, they made that shit from the ground up, and in generation to generation to generation, you can see from the footprints in the sand, they're upholding that, and then that's it. Instead of it turning into some weird ass comedy like some debate and argument all the time, to where you like, oh, what's the original this and what's the original that? Who's the original Jew? What was the original religion? What was the original goddamn human in evolution and shit like that? And we came from monkeys, all that type shit. It's just like some fucking scientific institutionalized thinking or some shit like that. Instead of making your own institution, like put yourself in that perspective, build on that, try to build that character, that mindset, and get around people who in the same shit you into and stuff like that, to where it ain't gonna turn into some fucking religious law, religious nationalism or some shit like that. You made a nation based upon you and your people and stuff like that, who all got the same sentiment and stuff like that. And then at that point, motherfuckers gonna be looking at you like, what the fuck is you talking about, man? Get the fuck on somewhere with that shit. We don't run that over here in this block. We don't run that over here in this city, in this town, in this culture and shit like that. Like we don't even think like that. So why the fuck you bringing that shit over here? We'll easily spot an agent. We'll easily spot an espionage. We'll easily spot, oh, a motherfucker just spying. Oh, a motherfucker just trying to get in on something. Oh, a motherfucker just trying to use something to get into a better position and powers and stuff like that because they're insecure, or they trying to, you know what I'm saying, they can't validate themselves, and because, you know, because spirits like being fulfilled, so they want to be fulfilled in something, and because they can't get like us, they trying to make some gain only they can win in some monopoly or some shit like that. And top hat Italian mustache man, pilgrim face, you know what I'm saying, what's that chip called? But what the fuck is that chip called, bro? You know what I'm talking about? I think it's called Pilgrims for real. Hold on. Bruh, Pringles, bruh. Pringles. I had to look that bitch up. I had to look that bitch up. Bruh, Pringles, bruh. One word, bro. One word, bro. One little syllable away from saying Pilgrim. Pringles. With the mustache mask. Bro, that's all I'm saying though, for real, bro. Get y'all culture together and shit like that. Get y'all own brands and shit like that, because that's a chip brand, man. Get your own brands and shit like that. So you ain't gonna go based upon the commercial or the name brand or what that look like. You got your own shit that tasty to your shit and your taste buds, and motherfuckers can buy your shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, just start thinking like that instead of thinking otherwise and shit like that.